Welcome everybody to the Carlette Christmas Show. This morning we're talking about something that no woman ever wants to face in her life. It's a sorority that none of us want to join. And I'm talking about breast cancer. We don't want to just wait for October to talk about breast cancer and breast awareness. We want to talk about it all year long because we know that 1 in 8 women in their lifetime will be affected by breast cancer. Well, our guest this morning gained our attention because she's talking not only about breast cancer, but she's talking about the hair care products that many of us covet so dearly. And could they be a problem? This morning we're joined by Tiah Tomlin-Harris. She's a cancer coach and breast health educator. Confronted her breast cancer diagnosis head on, and now she's shining a light on the harmful effects of toxic chemicals in our beauty products. All the way from the ATL, we welcome Tiah to the OPT network. Tiah, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. When I read your article that I know has probably gotten traction from all over the place, it made me want to know more. First of all, take us back to when you were diagnosed with breast cancer.
Sure. So I was diagnosed in 2015 with an aggressive form of breast cancer. I was considered a young survivor. I was under the age of 40. 40 is when we typically start getting mammograms if you're not at high risk. And so the day that I found it, I was in the shower doing a self-breast exam. Just, what I normally do. It wasn't anything new outside of the norm. And as I was doing my self-breast exam, that's when I felt the lump. And when I felt the lump, it just completely took my breath away because I knew it was cancer. And you're probably saying, well, how do you know? You know your body. And if I've never felt anything, and I've been diligent doing self-breast exams since I was in the 7th grade. At the time, when I was in the 7th grade, my aunt was diagnosed with breast cancer. And one of the things that we talk about in the Black community is we don't talk about it. And when my aunt was diagnosed with breast cancer, we didn't have the conversation about it at all. We just knew, auntie lost her breast. That was it. Don't talk about it. And, my mother never talked to me about self-breast exams. But at the time when I was in school, I was taking sex education, which they've taken out of the schools now. Wow. But when I was taking it, they were talking about doing self-breast exams. So think of me as a 12-year-old who, there was no social media. There was no, internet at that time. As a 12-year-old, and I'm hearing that my auntie lost her breast, just thinking of someone losing their breast was very scary. And so I knew I didn't want to lose mine, so I better check them. So I had been doing self-breast exams since the 7th grade. And of course, as I got older, I started to learn how to really do them. Mm-hmm. But I had been doing them every month and very diligent. And sometimes I do them, more than once within a month, just because it was habit. Mm-hmm. And so that afternoon when I'm taking a shower and I'm gliding my hand across my breast and I feel it and I'm just like, what? Why? Mm-hmm. and I try to psych myself out of it to say, no, that's not what I think I'm feeling. But in the back of my mind, I really knew. And so I told my business partner at the time, and he said, well, just, make your appointment. Just go to the doctor, So,
What did you say to your business partner?
So we were actually going to an event. We had started a business together to put on, it was going to be a cause marketing company, to put on events to raise awareness for different causes. So our first event was around cancer. Wow. So I go and we're out networking to prepare for our event. And when I feel the lump, I walk out and I said, I felt the lump. And he's looking at me like, well, just go to the doctor. He's not thinking of cancer. I didn't say the words cancer. It was just, I felt the lump. Like, I'm scared. Mm-hmm. And, bless men's heart. I love them, but they don't think like we think, of course.
No. So do you take me back to that 12-year-old girl that knows that auntie lost her breast and nobody in the family is talking about it? Do you at some point, as a girl coming into probably around that time, getting her period and growing breast and becoming a young woman, do you think maybe I should ask my mom a little bit more about this, or do you just go it alone?
You go it alone at that time, because you have to remember during that time when I was growing up, breast cancer was not talked about in the Black community. It was thought of as a white woman's disease. My mother's mother, my grandmother, never talked to my mom about breast health, self breast exams is what they call it then. So of course my mom never talked about it. And we didn't talk about breast cancer affecting Black women because it was always thought of as a white woman's disease. You saw commercials, it was white women.
That's right.
The commercials that you did see or the movies that you saw, it wasn't as prevalent in the 80s as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time in my life, yes, it was a go it alone.
Wow. So fast forward into a woman, 38 years old, you're in the shower, you feel this lump. Do you then turn to your mother and say, I feel a lump in my breast? How does that next conversation unfold?
Yeah. So, well, I didn't tell my family at first. And the reason why I didn't say anything, well, a few years prior, 2011, I lost my grandfather. We buried my grandfather on a Monday. My father had a major stroke on that Saturday. So he was in a hospital for, a month. Shortly after my father gets out the hospital, my sister-in-law has to have an emergency hysterectomy. 2 weeks later, my brother is diagnosed with stage 4 testicular cancer. He's going through his process. Of course, the doctors is giving him, 6 months to live. He's doing great. He's still alive, but
he's still alive now or then?
He's still alive now,
mm-hmm.
And so he's, at the time he's going through his process, he's having to, do surgery.
So it's just too much going on.
Yes. Because my mom has a heart attack and the next year she loses her sister. So at this point, 2015, everything is looking good for our family. And I'm like, it's no way I'm going to be able to tell my mother this right.
Wait, did you say your mom had a heart attack?
Yes. That same year. It was just a lot. I mean, think about it. Her father, her husband, and her son all being affected. And then she loses her sister.
And her own personal stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the stress behind it. And I was like, I can't tell my mom. Let me find out what's going on first before I communicate this. So, of course I go get the testing done. I go to my gynecologist. Because again, I'm 38. I don't have a breast specialist. So I go to my gynecologist. She feels the lump. She makes the referral. I go and I'm sitting in the room. And what I'm seeing is people are going in and out. And I'm just sitting there. There's no TV. There's no music. I'm just sitting there in a gown, feeling naked and feeling vulnerable because I'm afraid now, and I'm still here. Everybody's coming in and out. So finally.
So at this point, Tiah, are you thinking everybody has come in and out, something's really wrong?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sitting in my thoughts, So the fear is just heavy. It's really heavy. So finally they say, we need you to come back. We need to do more testing. And at that point, when they tell me I need to come back, they tell me I need to come back for a biopsy. And so, I knew that I needed to say something at that point to my mom and dad. So I ended up going home. Home is in Virginia. That's where I was born and raised. And right before it was time for me to come back, I was like, okay, I need to say something. So I asked my mom, I said, Mom, I knew you had growing up, fibrocystic breast. Tell me what was that like? And she said, why are you asking me? And I said, well, I felt a lump in my breast. And so she said, where? So I showed her and she felt it. And she's just, kind of give me this look. And then my dad comes into the room and she's like, Wendell, feel this, Mm-hmm. So my dad feels it. And he said, this is what your breast felt like when you were younger, because my mom had fibrocystic breast. I did have an issue when I was younger. I was doing a medical program and my breast was like hurting me so bad to the point I couldn't wear a bra. I couldn't touch them. And what they said is, I was drinking too much coffee and sugar. It was too much caffeine that was causing that. Because I was in a grad program And I was just, trying to stay up and study and all of that. So of course I'm like Twizzlers, coffee, sugar, whatever, to stay up. So that was affecting the breast. But once I stopped, I had no problems. So I never had any breast issues. But, with my brother having been diagnosed with testicular cancer, for me, I'm like, well, if he's diagnosed with cancer, even though it wasn't a relatable cancer, what's going on with me?
Right.
And so they said they didn't feel like, my parents didn't think it was breast cancer. I didn't want to say it, but I felt that way.
Hold that thought. Let's take a break here, Tiah. But when we come back, we'll talk about the journey and we'll talk about how it unfolds and how you begin to look at the reason for many of the breast cancers that we might be seeing today that maybe we never even thought about. Stay with us, everybody. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the Carlette Christmas Show. Our guest this morning is Tiah Tomlin-Harris. She's the founder of Breast Health Matters. She's a cancer survivor. She's a cancer coach. This is just still such a hard subject. And we fight for every woman. We want every woman to be educated and understand the risks, understand what's normal so that they know what's not normal. But in communities of color, everything is magnified because, as you said during the break, Black women, women of color, are spending 9 times more than any other race on stuff like beauty products and, skincare products. I mean, we love our products, obviously, a lot more than other women, and this could really be a problem. And so you say, what about that?
So, it's really important. When I think about our communities, we have these stores on every corner. We have the smoke shops, we have the liquor stores, we have the Greasy Spoon, and we have beauty supply stores. And we don't know what's in those products. We don't know the chemical makeup of those products. And a lot of those products are actually causing us harm. And you think as little girls, just let's take the chemical fragrance. Fragrance is one of the worst chemicals ever. Why? Because we don't know the chemical makeup of that fragrance. It's the company's, like their intellectual property or their secret sauce that they don't have to release. And when you think about it, fragrance is in everything. It's in our makeup. It's in our hair care products. It's even in our trash bags, And so when we get perfume, where are we spraying it? All on our breast and, lymph nodes and all of that stuff. So we're not knowledgeable about these things. So for me, it was important once I started to learn more, it's to go and just educate our community. Even when we're babies, what are we putting on our babies?
Baby
our
powder
breast tissue,
and lotions.
Yeah, and they have fragrance on them. We want them to smell good. And our breasts our breast tissue is very complex. It's growing throughout the whole period of our lives. And so the more we're exposed as a young person, the greater the risk becomes as we get older.
Wow.
For breast cancer.
So you start doing all the work, you start educating yourself and others, and then in 2019, the cancer recurs.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so, of course I was distraught when it happened. And I just said, okay,
Tell us,
God,
how did you know that it was back?
Well, I felt the lump.
Another lump.
I felt the lump under the arm. So it actually spread into the lymph node. So it moved outside of the breast and went to the lymph node. And the statistics when it comes to triple negative, the closer you are to the initial diagnosis, the greater the risk of recurrence. So of course, now I'm in year 3 and I'm excited because I've, surpassed the time frame in which they say, which is like 2 years. So I'm thinking this is not going to happen to me. I'm good to go, and I get hit with it's back. I feel the lump under the arm. And when they said it came back, I said, I'm gonna fight this differently. I'm gonna fight it with food and faith. And I made a decision not to do chemo and radiation. Of course, that wasn't favorable for many, because that's not what, we know to do from a conventional medicine standpoint. But I've been researching and educating myself from 2015 up until that point, and I felt like I was equipped. I also felt like this was more of a spiritual battle than it was a natural battle. And I said, I'm going to fight it with food and faith. So focus on what I put on my skin, but also what I, what I put on my body, but also what I put in my body. And I'm just going to trust God. His word says, by his stripes, I'm healed. And so I had to stand on that. I did not share that with a lot of people. I only shared it with a very select few who I knew were prayer warriors, because I needed them in the battle with me, on the battlefield, on the front lines, praying for me. And I knew, because of the work that I do in the community, I did not want the cancer community to say, Tiah, you really should consider, this clinical trial. You should try this drug or really do this or you're going to die. My doctor was talking to me about dying, and I had to address that by saying, you're right. I am going to die one day. You're going to die one day. We're all going to die one day, but I'm not going to die from cancer or with cancer. So you can stop having that conversation with me about dying. This is a path that I'm choosing to go when it comes to my healing journey. And I just need you to be on board with me. And of course, she was concerned. And I said, I understand conventional medicine, but, the first time I was really afraid, and I jumped right on in without doing the research initially and really understanding. Now that I have understanding, this is the path that I'm choosing. And I'm not sharing this with your audience to say, hey guys, don't do radiation and chemo. What I do tell people is, the battle starts in the mind, and you just have to have faith and you have to believe. And I will say, I was afraid in the beginning. I was actually, the next week was supposed to go to DC to do advocacy on the Hill and meet with John Lewis. And my mother said to me, don't you plan to die, you plan to live, because I was going to cancel it. So of course that really did something to me emotionally, but I just said, okay, God, I'm going to give you, initially I said 30 days. I'm going to give you 30 days and see what happens. And when I talked to the breast surgeon after my scans, she said I could get another scan in 3 months. I said, okay, God, I'm gonna give you 3 months. Let me take all the things that I've learned and try to apply it, and let's see what happens. But whatever happens, even if it was, unto my demise, God, I was going to trust you no matter what.
Wow.
And so I fought it with food and faith. I went completely plant-based, lost a lot of weight. And I was diligent. I was very focused. I did some other, integrative modalities. But I did not let anything that I was doing stop me from staying on my plan, my game plan.
Did your previous battle with chemo and the drugs, did that influence this battle in 2019 not to put that in your system again?
That was part of it. When I was initially diagnosed, I wanted to go holistic, but I didn't know enough to go holistic. And when I talked to a naturopath, they were out of Texas. So I would have to spend money to, fly them to Atlanta and put them in a hotel to really just help me. And I was like, I can't afford that. But because I had been doing my research, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt from a spiritual standpoint that this is what my purpose is. And, God, when you're ready for me to go home is when my purpose has been fulfilled.
What gave you the strength and the courage and the faith to say, God, I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to trust you so big that I'm not going through these treatments? Where did that come from, you think?
I have no clue.
I mean, was that, that had to be a calculated decision.
It was, I knew that I never wanted to do chemo again if I could help it. Right. Like I said, I had spending all this time researching and studying, and other things were happening that I didn't talk about. I don't know how much time we got, because it's a whole nother story.
I know we don't have
other things.
We're going to visit again. Let's visit again, because we really are out of time. But it is an amazing story. It is an incredible article, and it should make all of us think, but most especially women of color who we haven't engaged in these conversations still, even in 2022, enough. So for the work that you're doing, before we have to let you go, and I promise we'll have the conversation so that we can expand, because there's so much information that you have available. Tell people how they can connect with all of the resources and the research that you have done to bring light to breast cancer, and really where it may be coming from.
Absolutely. So our nonprofit is mystylematters.org. So you can go to our website, mystylematters.org. You can also visit me at breasthealthmatters.org. That's where I do the educational programming. It's an empowerment program. Um, our social media handle at mystylematters, and it's breast health matters, my_breast_health matters on Instagram. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter and Facebook. You can find us there and definitely connect with us.
Absolutely, and we'll bring you back in the next month or so, and we'll continue the conversation because it's such a vitally important conversation. And I think that, well, you know, Scripture says, "My people perish from a lack of knowledge," and I think that many of us are doing just that. We don't have enough information, and then when we do get the information, it still takes courage to implement what we know. So may God continue to bless the work of your hands, continue to bless your health, and we just can't wait to see what God is going to do next for you and with you in the earth realm in educating all of us. Thank you so much, Tiah.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Hey, everybody, stay with us. We're back to wrap up right after this.